I'm Joe Darginio with Better Than News, talking about the things that the rest of the news media isn't. And hiding in plain sight on whitehouse.gov, they're talking about some of the money going to Ukraine and who's handling that. So let's take a look. So here in whitehouse.gov briefing room under presidential actions, I found three things as they relate to our aid to Ukraine in their current conflict. So we're going to start back on December 9th, which was a Friday. And they announced a lot of things on Friday, so you forget about it over the weekend. So delegates to Secretary of State, the direct drawdown of up to $275 million in defense articles and services of the Department of Defense and military education and training to provide assistance to Ukraine and make the determinations required under such section to direct such a drawdown. Okay, so $275 million to Ukraine on December 9th. So then we jump ahead to another briefing room presidential action on December 21st. And again, delegate to the Secretary of State up to $1 billion to provide assistance to Ukraine. Again, that's the Secretary of State, who we'll get to in just a moment. And then, most recently, here, January 6th, again on a Friday, they announced, again, delegate to the Secretary of State, direct drawdown of $2.85 billion in defense articles to provide assistance to Ukraine, and all signed by our illustrious leader. So, who's the Secretary of State? That's this guy, Anthony J. Blinken. We can find information about him in brief on state.gov/secretary, and it talks a little bit about him and the offices that he is in charge of. So, who is this guy, Anthony Blinken? Well, I did a simple search, and of course there's plenty of stuff on Wikipedia, and of course I want to look at his private endeavors because a lot of times they show a conflict of interest, particularly with these last few generations of leaders. So 2017 he co-founded West Exec Advisors, a political strategy advisory firm with this guy, Michelle Flournoy. And we'll get into him a little bit more, or I'm sorry, her a little bit more on another time. But, so they founded this West Execs Advisors, and their clients include a surveillance drone manufacturer, Shield AI, which signed a $7.2 million contract with the Air Force. Okay, so if Blinken is advising Shield AI, they probably had a pretty easy time getting a $7.2 million contract with our military. So, in an interview with Ms. Flournoy, described West Exec's role as facilitating relationships between Silicon Valley firms and Department of Defense and law enforcement. So, if our Secretary of State is advising companies, which they're certainly going to get paid for, and has advised them in the capacity which allowed them to get a $7.2 million contract with the Air Force, I think this is something that bears looking into as a conflict of interest. So, in addition to being upset about all this money going to Ukraine, when we need a lot of help here at home, I think it's important that we take a closer look at Mr. Blinken and his relationship with the military industry. So I found that pretty interesting. I'm definitely going to be taking a closer look at Mr. Blinken because he definitely has the appearance of being what we call a war hawk. So stay tuned and see what else I can dig up on these guys. It's hiding in plain sight. You just got to do your homework.